everyone, and welcome back to season 3 of The Voice of Luxury. My name is Lucy Challenger, and I'm the CEO and founder of Polo and Tweed. And I am absolutely delighted to be joined today by a very special woman. Her name is Pandora Mather-Lees, and she is an art appreciation and training expert in the care of fine art. Now, Pandora's career, which I'm really excited to share with you today, I'm very excited she's going to join with us today. She specializes in not only family offices who run estates, but private residential properties and also onboard super yachts. So Pandora, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Lucy. It's a good day today, which is not very common for the UK, but delighted to join you, and thank you very much for the interview.
Of course. No, thank you. Thank you for joining us. So, I would love to hand over to you straight away. And for people who are listening to this for the first time, and perhaps don't have an understanding of what art appreciation is, particularly in these areas that you specialize in, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your career and how you ended up in working in the areas that you do now.
Yes, of course. Well, first of all, I'm a founding member of the Art Due Diligence Group, which is an organisation which assists collectors, buyers and sellers specifically with guidance through fine art transactions at the very top of the market. So it's very important. There are about sort of 10 of us, and we're all specialists in different aspects of the art world and the transactional art world and the litigation that might ensue from disputes and that sort of thing as well. I'm also the owner of artonsuperyachts.com and Pandora Art Education, so sort of wide range of things that I currently do. But just to go back to the beginning, actually, some of your, because I know this is very vocational and about careers, so some of your listeners might be interested to learn that I actually left school at 16. I grew up in the 70s, and I sort of started to do A-levels, and in the end I just didn't want to do it anymore. I was always hankering to get out to work. So I went into PR and advertising and had an early career in that aspect of the visual arts. So it's only in my 30s that I actually went to university, encouraged by my mother. And there wasn't a lot I could do having left school at 16, but I was always interested in art, but I wasn't good enough to do fine art. So I slipped into the study of art history, and it just changed my life actually at the age of 30. So I'd always been in business and enjoyed it, but to actually be able to take that aspect of visual culture into another area was just amazing. So having been rather bad at school, I studied very, very hard and got a very, very good degree. And I went on to Oxford and I did a master's in ancient history. So it's art history and ancient history. And from that, I was just lucky. I mean, you're going to ask me, I guess, about things that happen in your career, but I was just lucky that I applied for a lot of jobs, and I started my new career working for Bridgman Art Library. Bridgman Images, as it is now, is the Getty Images of the art world. So we traveled the world, we found all these wonderful art collections, we digitized them, and actually I was responsible partly for being on the team that was planning this digitization, because we took it from analog to digital. And it was just a most amazing career, because we had a team of picture researchers finding pictures for projects. We had cataloguers, we had salespeople handling the legal aspect of the licensing deals, and effectively I did that for something like 16 years. And I built up a network of international agents around the world. So we traveled around the world to see them. We went to conferences, we visited museums. So it couldn't have been a better job. And I just consider myself very lucky that I just happened to fall into that. And I think, in addition to that, I learned so much from traveling and sort of meeting people. So it was good, but it sort of came to an end eventually, because well, the industry is quite difficult now, because everyone's sort of stealing images from the internet. They're not paying for them. But it came to a point where it was time for me to sort of move on, and I should have moved on before. but it was such a great job, as you can imagine, that I didn't. And we'd set up a network of international offices as well, so I was sort of constantly, on a train or a plane. So I didn't stop for all of that time, and never ever stopped to think, really. I just had to keep thinking about the next thing and moving forward. But after that, I went to a global art platform, which is called ArtNet, and I was vice president of sales, and moving to New York, which I didn't really sort of want to do at that time of my life. So it was a little bit of a difficult challenge. And I was there for a year, and it never quite sort of came off. And then I was sort of toying with moving to their Berlin office, which I was managing anyway. And I sort of ended up just not doing that, and sort of broke away from it, and ended up being an independent consultant. So I was consulting with a major logistics company, Headleys, in London. Well, they're international as well. So it was a very similar, all those organizations were sort of like the perfume companies, it was London, Paris, New York, and so quite exciting, and Berlin as well. So that was good, because I sort of learnt about many other different aspects of the art world, including I went to an art forensics company. I was working with them for many, many months, and also with with other luxury goods and luxury assets. And would you like me to sort of lead into how I'm doing?
Yes, I'd
What I'm
love to
doing
know
now?
how your current career, current stage of career evolved, and what it is that you do now on a sort of a daily basis for your
Okay.
work.
Great. Okay. So I sort of noticed that I was working down a lot in the south of France, because I'm such a Francophile and love France and love the food and the wine and all the things that go with it. And so Steve Headley at Headley's Logistics said, "Oh, Pandora, if you want to go knocking on any doors, in the French territories, just feel free." So I took it and ran. And so I spent a lot of time down in Monaco and Nice and on the Côte d'Azur, sort of building up contacts. But I noticed there was a lot of fine art coming off super yachts, going into the villas on the Côte d'Azur and into other places. And I thought, gosh, this is an enormous risk, because moving art is, for fine art objects, it's the biggest risk that you can imagine. So at the same time, simultaneously, I was going around the stands at the yacht show, and I saw there are all these brilliant training options and opportunities for the crew, and for people that wanted to get into the hospitality industry. And they had things like sort of, arranging flowers, arranging the tables, and, sort of service, and then also wine and the W set courses. And I thought, well, why on earth do crew need to learn about wine? Because they're just sort of serving it. And obviously they had the sort of sommelier courses for those experts that are on the yacht. So they do need to understand something about it. And I thought, well, there's billions of pounds worth of art and paintings around. What if one of the guests asks a stewardess, or on land, a housekeeper or anyone working, or a butler, what if they ask them about that art collection, what it is? They're not going to be able to answer. And obviously that's really embarrassing, and, gives them a lack of confidence. So I thought, why don't I do a little art appreciation lecture? And ensuing from that, I sort of wrote something on the plane coming back from one of the Monaco Yacht Show expeditions rather, that I'd been on, and I sent it out to a lot of training companies, and nothing happened immediately, and I kept on working on my sort of presentation. And then I met the chief stewardess who'd worked on the Microsoft yachts, and she said, no, Pandora, what you've got to do is actually train them in how to care for the art and the environment and the heat and the light, and all the logistics, and all those roles that you've had in the art world. You can share that with other people and explain it to them. So we set up something called the Art at Sea Symposium, and the symposium was held at the Maritime Museum. We had all the great and the good from the art world and the maritime world, and the insurers and the lawyers and all the accountants and all the experts. And out of that came a whole nother aspect to the course, which was the export risks, because at the time a major Picasso had been seized from a super yacht, confiscated from its owner, and as we speak it is still in the Madrid Museum, and it will never go back, because he had been accused of smuggling, and he had a jail sentence and a $93 million fine just because he took that Picasso out of Spanish territorial waters.
Wow.
And that's because of national heritage laws.
Yeah.
So I realized that it was really important to teach cultural heritage, national treasure laws, and also all about endangered species, because if you take ivory into different territories, that's smuggling. And there is also a new regulation coming in about looted antiquities. So we ran the symposium. I got together with some interns that I had sort of working with me, and then we expanded this content into 13 modules, and I'm still going. I can't stop. I'm a bit like the guy that teaches lectures on the cruise ships. He's always got another sort of angle that he thinks, oh, I'll talk about the interior, or talk about the engines, or talk about this. So I've now expanded into sort of a little course on security, one on sustainability in the art world and the super yacht world, and underwater cultural heritage, which I'm really looking to expand. And I'm now trying to get a sponsor for an event which is all about underwater cultural heritage, and I've got people that I want to speak at that event. So that's kind of where I am now. I'm just really training on the vessels. I train one-to-one like this. I train in the classroom, and it's very, very rewarding. So that's what's brought me to where I am now.
That's amazing. That's fascinating. And how valuable that you can draw now on everything you've learned in your career, and then practically apply that to the education of others, the inspiration of others, allowing people to protect their investments, but also giving them that really strong educational understanding of what they're experiencing. Because in my line of work as well, you may have a housekeeper that has to clean marble, but if they've never seen marble before, well, how do they know how to clean it? And of course, when you're then dealing with a 19 or priceless Picasso or whatever it may be, there is such an onerous and emphasis on the staff knowing how to handle that, through to the captain, and then of course the principals, who may themselves not know how to look after these things. Just because you can afford to buy it doesn't mean that you know how to look after it. What would you say? It sounds like you're very varied, and your boots on the ground, you're out on sites, on board yachts, but what is it that inspires you to get up every day and do the work you're doing? What would be, if you could put your finger on one thing that really drives that passion?
Yes, just before I go on to that, I have to say that you've picked up on marble, and there was actually a case where in a country house, the people cleaning the floor were cleaning a black and white marble floor with bleach, and over time it had created a film over that marble, which was sort of historical in itself. So you're absolutely right. I mean, that's a massive risk. But in terms of what makes me want to get up in the morning, I guess it's sharing that kind of information with people. I think it has to be the people that I'm working with. I find, certainly on the yachts, the stewardesses are absolutely wonderful. I really enjoy being with them. They're so open and keen to learn, and I think sort of adaptable and very keen to listen. So I think it's engaging with those people, and that gives me energy. So I think being able to share that knowledge, I think you learn and you learn and you learn, but what good is it if you just got it inside? You sort of have to get it out there and help other people. And I think that gives me a really good feeling. It's I don't enjoy every aspect of the business, but what I do think is that most of it I find creative. So even if I'm writing a strategy, I find that creative. I mean, doing my accounts and invoicing, it's just horrible. It's not me. But apart from things like that, which always get left to the last minute, it's everything I do. I find to a creative way. You start with a blank piece of paper, and then you sort of build up and build up from there, and then you have something to show for it at the end. So I guess it's that fulfillment, being productive, and sort of being useful to other people. I mean, it gives you a sort of reason to be, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I love what you said about that kind of transference of energy, and that you have this knowledge and this energetic power when it comes to all of this training and work you've done in your career, and then to share that with someone who's open, like those the crew members that you mentioned, and to have that back and forth, it's so powerful because you both get that evolution, you both get that fulfillment with your daily work, and that's beautiful to hear that you have that. If someone was listening to this now or watching this now and thinking, you know, I'd really love to, you know, I'm very creative, or you know, I love the art world, or I think I would love the art world, what would there be sort of 3 perhaps guidance points you could give someone as to how to enter this world? Because we live in a very different market now, of course, to when, you know, you were doing your initial training and these incredible opportunities you had. What would be a way that a young person or someone who wanted a change of career could enter the art world? And I realize that's a very broad spectrum kind of statement to ask, but is there any advice you could give?
Yeah, sure. I think being in the yachting world, you are part of the luxury industry. You know, this is one luxury passion asset, which is housing other luxury passion assets. So the first thing is to really be cognizant of, you know, the objects that you have on board, the cultural heritage of those objects, how they've been put together, you know, the interior design aspect, and to sort of, you know, have a real feel for that. But I think if you're then looking specifically to get into the art world, I think you have to obviously take a course, my little course, of course I would say that, but I have a little course on art appreciation, art history, and another one on art history. So do some preparation and learning. I think the other thing is to get an internship. So a lot of people that have come to me for internships have been able to go on to other jobs because I've really helped them with their CV. I've helped them with sort of mentoring. I've given them roles that they can actually do something, even if it's sort of social media or marketing, they've actually done it. So when they go to another company, they're sort of familiar with what they should do. Although I'm not a big corporation, I'm one person, but I've worked in marketing. So for instance, you know, I can help them with that. Or if it's, I've got someone at the moment that wants to go into conservation. So I'm giving her projects that relate to that. So if you can find a good internship, that's very, very important, because you get contacts, you get confidence, you get a sort of bit of mentoring from the person that's instructing you. The second thing, as I'd say, is join the right societies. So, you know, if you like Art Deco, join a museum that's got Art Deco, and join a committee on a museum if you can. You know, it's not necessarily going to get onto the board of the V&A. I'm not saying that, but you can actually find some local, even I'm not, but you can find some local sort of museum or an art society or a collector's society that relates to something that gives you sort of an interest, or a sort of you know, that sort of inspires you, really, that sparks your attention. And get to know the people, because they're very friendly. If you can get over the first barrier of sort of going into an event and sort of just talking to people, you know, it can be quite difficult. I went to a yachting event last night, and I was just burst into a couple of groups and said, do you mind if I talk to you? And even I, you know, at my age, was, and knowing the industry and everything, I was a little bit sort of apprehensive, but you just have to do it. So joining those, taking part on a committee is great for your CV. You know, put all the right things on your CV, strip out all the sort of the barrister roles, you know, as in coffee shop barrister, all the sort of, you know, worked in the local supermarket. Yes, that gives you skills, but people don't really want to see that. They want to see specifics. So make it very specific to the art world, and show that you've got focus and you mean to sort of really, you know, you've got a goal and a vision, and you mean to actually insert yourself into this industry and be there for a long time and look like you've got longevity. And join conferences, go to conferences. You know, there's quite a few students that I do encounter at conferences, super yacht conferences, art conferences. They're not always cheap, but if you can find a way to get yourself in, maybe helping out, which is even better because you really get to see people, handing out the microphone, all of those things will insert you into that industry. It'll give you confidence, it'll give you contacts. There'll be other young people. That's another thing, to connect with all the young people. You know, I always connect past interns, well, I try to anyway, with current interns. So they've got their own network, and their social capital that they can start to build on. So very important. And of course, foster recruiters like yourself which is vital.
Absolutely. It strikes me that a large portion of your career and all your experience came from this training element, this your desires to learn and grow yourself, and experiences you had with that, through to now training others. But if you look back at your career, would you say that there was one defining moment that made you sort of the light bulb moment of that this is what I want to do with my life? This is what I think I will get the most fulfillment, the most passion from? Or do you see it as more an evolution over the times?
Generally an evolution. I've always sort of had a lot of ideas coming into my head of what I would like to do or what could be possible, but it's very hard to realize those without resources. And, we're always all struggling with resources. So I think, when the curator of the museum in Exeter, a very lovely lady called Jane Baker, I was interning and volunteering there. She said, "Oh, well, Pandora, if you can't do art, you could always do art history." My mother having sort of encouraged me to try and do something at university. So I think that was a light bulb moment.
Mm.
The fact that it was actually possible that I could even get a degree or get into university, let alone get a good degree. So I think that was a light bulb moment. And then I think when I was at Monaco Yacht Show, as I said earlier, suddenly seeing this and thinking, actually, no one is teaching art to stewardesses or art appreciation. So I think those are the two, really.
Yeah, two moments. And just jumping back to something you said earlier as well about the Picasso story, which, I wanted to hear more about. But outside of that, could you think of any, more unusual or even funny or like moments that happened in your career where you just thought, my gosh, this is unique. This is only an experience, that people won't believe it when I tell them, or, this incredible experience or moment that I've had.
Oh, I don't know, actually. But I suppose I had one really amazing day when I worked at Bridgman Images. I worked very closely with Viscountess Bridgman, and she was quite a bit older than me, but had 10 times more energy. And I guess it's always the people with more energy that sort of achieve things somehow. But we had been in a meeting in Missouri in the St. Louis Museum, and we were going back to some not terribly nice hotel, and I was hungry and tired and everything else. And she said, "Do you know what? We're flying to New Orleans tomorrow. I think we can go via Houston." And I'm like, "What? I just want to get into bed and get up, at 9 and then fly to Houston." We had a meeting at the end of the day. So yes, I'm going to get onto my PA and get her to organize some flights. Anyway, this meant we actually had to get up at 3 or 4 or something to get to the airport, to go to Houston, to meet with the Menil collection, which is a beautiful art collection which we wanted to represent, and then to go to the Houston Art Museum, which we did represent, and meet these people. And we sort of got there something like 11 o'clock, and I just thought I was going to fall over. So I just can't do this. I'm just not a morning person. I was working to 1 o'clock last night and the night before, but I'm just not a morning person. Anyway, so she said, "Yes, of course you can. I'm going to get you a glass of champagne from the bar downstairs," and then just to get on with it. There was no messing around with it. So she did, and I had this glass of champagne, which I knocked back, and they sort of kept going for the rest of the day. And we flew to New Orleans. We had a meeting with the director. And then we had the opening party of a conference. So it was the Picture Library Conference, and I was on the board of the Picture Library Association. And we knew a lot of people there. So we went to the opening party of the conference, and then we were sort of given all these hurricane cocktails, which were very sugary. And we had far too many. But anyway, we sort of got to bed, I think about 3, 4 a.m. So it was literally a 24-hour day. And, Harriet was quite amazing. She did sort of push you, and I sort of picked up a lot of work ethic from that. But I guess another moment is when I went to ArtNet, I sort of worked very hard to sort of get this job and to be part of the organization. It's a very prestigious organization, and I was installed, and I was given the corner office on the 17th floor of the Woolworth building. It was a very stressful time. I had a very fast learning curve and far too much information to take in. It was a public company. But there was a moment where I sat there at the end of the day, and I don't know if you've seen the film Working Girl with Melanie Griffiths, where she lands this fantastic job. It's an 80s film,
Okay.
and she sort of crosses her high heels on and puts her arms back, crosses her high heels on the desk. And I did that looking out over Manhattan, and I thought, yes, maybe you've arrived finally. But I don't know. I don't want to sound arrogant. I mean, it's not an arrogance thing, but it was just, well, you know, finally, I think actually I have actually achieved something
Yeah,
to get
yeah,
there.
absolutely.
Mm.
That's a very cool moment. That's fabulous. So
Mhm.
when you're not working and you're not doing, you know, this incredible work on board super yachts and working with these incredible pieces of art and really educating people, you know, do you scour art museums? Are you always in the art world, or what do you do? What do you enjoy doing when you're not working?
Well, for me, going to an art museum is a bit like work. You know, it's Coles to Newcastle, so I'd rather be anywhere than looking at an artwork. Having said that, I do find it stimulating when I'm with another art historian. You can have a sort of more in-depth conversation. And of course, I enjoy, you know, looking at paintings and going to museums, but it is a bit like sort of work for me, you know, another gallery and whatever. A lot of my time outside work is socializing with people who, you know, sort of colleagues. So tomorrow is Saturday, and I'm going to go for coffee in the afternoon with two industry colleagues. And for me, that's fun and that's pleasure. And it's just not like work. So I think I seek out the people I want to work with. You know, I'm just too old now to work with people that I don't like or I can't get on with, and
Mm.
it just doesn't make for a smooth process and transition. So that's a lot of that time is. But apart from that, I have this dirty secret that I am a heavy metal rock fan. So no one can believe it. So I have a complete alternative wardrobe with the leathers and the high heels.
I
And
love it.
I go to metal concerts and headbang. Well, at least I did. I was slowing down a little bit now at my age, but yeah, I really enjoy that. And my other half's a musician, so
Okay.
it makes it easier. So my other sort of set of friends are in that world as well, although in fact one of them is a yachty. But yeah, so
I love that.
it
I
might
love
be strange.
duality. I love polarity. I love, you know, all the different layers to the human being. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
mentioned earlier that you working with one of your interns for like underwater preservation. You know, what makes you continue to be curious about the work you do? Because you've seen so much art, and like you say, going to an art gallery on your day off is a bit like work. So how do you keep that curiosity, and what makes you curious to learn more about your passion and your job?
Well, curiosity, I think curiosity is something that all the great entrepreneurs and successful people have. I've noticed when I've met people and they've been sort of seriously important Richard Branson sort of types, well, not Richard Branson, but you know, I met some very interesting people, very educated and successful in their own career, whether it's science or whatever it might be. And they don't talk about themselves. They have a curiosity about other people, and they just want, you know, they meet you. They're not going to waste an ounce of their time. Their purpose, oh, I'm not saying they're not nice people, but their purpose is to glean what you do and how it works,
Mm,
and you know, the business model. And I'm a little bit like that. You know, people tell me what they do, and I want to know, you know, how that operates, how they get their business, what the business model is. So sort of, you know, uncovering that really. And I do, you know, when I lecture at Sotheby's Institute, and I was asked by one of the course program executives to do something about underwater cultural heritage, and all of a sudden that sparked, you know, a whole curiosity in me about how does that work, you know, who are the people, what's the technology. And I got one of my interns together with me, and I said, right, let's put together a PowerPoint presentation. What are all the aspects of underwater cultural heritage, and who are the people, sorry, just repeating that, but you know, how does it work, and what is it, what are the laws, what's the legislation around it? And I loved discovering that and putting it together and then teaching it. It was fantastic. And I've met this amazing guy called Toby Gain, who was working with Wessex Archaeology, who's a diver. And, you know, I'm desperate to sort of get him and I and perhaps a couple of others together and really do a sort of super yacht conference or event or seminar about cultural heritage above water on the yachts and then underwater, because
Wow.
there are so many, there's millions of wrecks out there, you know, not just the Titanic, which was discovered or excavated rather by Robert Ballard, but it's a whole legal aspect of people going down and getting treasure. How does that work? What are the jurisdictions? And you know, a lot of the world's cultural heritage is underwater. So even in the UK, I think we've got something like 52 wrecks underwater that we know about, but a very large percentage of our sort of land is submerged,
Yeah.
or in the territorial waters are 12 nautical miles, and then there's another 12 nautical miles which sort of applies. So there's a lot of space around England where there is cultural heritage that we can't even see. So I think it's that sort of thing, really. Sorry, am I rambling?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing. You know, it sparked a memory of my own when on my honeymoon, actually, we went on a liveaboard dive trip to the Cocos Islands, and the undersea
Yes.
hunter boat had a National Geographic submarine on board. And you'll be pleased to hear it wasn't like the one that went down to the Titanic recently. It was not a metal
Yeah.
tin. It was this acrylic dome, and you'd have the pilot and then me and my husband, and we decided to go down to the darkness. We went down to 300 meters and we went into the
Brave.
dark, and they turned the lights on, and we saw creatures that they said, we don't know what these are. These are sharks that we cannot, you know, they have not been named. They are unknown animals. And the fascination I had looking at that, and I thought, you know, what you're telling me, if we had been in that vessel at a wreck, and I've dived submarines, I've dived wrecks, I've dived, you know, I haven't obviously dived the Titanic, but I've dived a lot of incredible undersea aspects.
Yeah.
To be able to explore that from a historic perspective and also the art side, it's absolutely fascinating. And you know, I had that incredible curiosity with just like a shark, but if it had been a structure and we had been able to explore that with the vessel and learn about it and preserve it, and I mean, it's just, I love this stuff. I find it's absolutely so fascinating.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Well,
please avoid.
last night, in fact, there was some. Sorry to interrupt, but Boat International had their ocean talks at the Serpentine Gallery, and there was a diver there who took 5 hours to get down into the seabed in Mozambique and also in the Côte d'Azur, I think, and 5 hours to get back up. And he'd lived in this little pod about sort of 2 meters square or some tiny things. So, yeah, hats off to you for doing that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Although we must both avoid doing any of those submarines that didn't make it back up from the Titanic. I think, you know, that was very sad to hear of, you know, people who are exploring and pushing the boundaries, and then, you know, unfortunate things happen. But that, as you say, is the entrepreneurial spirit to adventure and explore and then see new things. But I think, you know, in times at the moment where there are, you know, economic challenges, there's global market shifts within all aspects of luxury, but also, you know, the cost of living crisis that we've seen in the UK. You know, could you share with us any, you know, you've talked a lot about your different experiences and perhaps some more challenging times, but was there any moments that were particularly difficult for you in your career, and is there any wisdom you could share with us as to what you did to overcome that?
Oh dear. Well, I think we've all been hit. I mean, I was particularly hit by Brexit in my sort of business development, sort of consultancy in the art world. Also, then, of course, by COVID, you know, when I started Art on Super Yachts, because I had some interesting projects that were just about to happen. I'd been speaking at a conference in Hamburg. I'd had a lot of speaking opportunities and I'd created quite a lot of exposure. So that really knocked me back. What I did to overcome that, I guess I then professionalized my course. I branded it. I did a lot of social media marketing training with an expert that I know. I sort of got a mentor. I mean, I'd like to have more mentors because you never feel you're doing well enough. You know, you always want someone to tell you that you're doing the right thing. But I sort of did all of those things and sort of re-strategized. I managed to work with Keynote International Conferences. They're amazing. And we set up a webinar on insurance for, you know, risk with art at sea. So I did things like that. So I continued to try to sort of keep myself out there and to keep focused on the end goal and to do things that I could do that were going to improve the business that probably I'd never had time to do, you know, like making my course, you know, properly structured and branded. I think that was you know, a positive. And you know, taking that step back personally, my father was dying, so it was nice to be able to be, I sort of relocated to Bristol, and it was nice to be in, we've got a big house down there, and I was with him. So actually it did me a lot of favors, you know, which perhaps if that hadn't happened, I would have had some regrets about not being with him. So I think, you know, that was really positive. Yeah, the Ukraine war is just like the icing on the cake, really, for me, you, and everybody. And it's all of these things. You know, business can carry on, but it's the confidence that people have, and they think, oh, you know, big projects get shelved, and when big projects get shelved by big companies, that affects the whole business ecosystem because it ripples down, and all, you know, the poor little people that feed off these big projects, they don't get, you know, they're just left high and dry. And it's a lot of it's about confidence. It's nothing to do with actually what's happening. You know, business is carrying on. We're still buying food, we're still buying clothes, we're still going out, you know, the super yachts are still on the water. In fact, that actually helped the industry rather than hindered it. So I think try to look at the positive and just shift your focus and just keep looking forward about, you know, what things you can do really in that sort of situation.
Yeah. And do you, you spoke earlier about, you know, meeting industry people on your time off and like keeping that connection with human beings going, but is there any specific spiritual or mindfulness practice that you follow to help balance this sort of sometimes quite stressful big stuff that's going on in the rest of the world?
Well, I think I did yoga a long time ago, and I was very good at going to the gym, but all of that stopped with Brexit, and then I got sick, so I actually couldn't go to the gym. But I mean, that's over now. But you know, you have every excuse not to pick it back up again, I think. Spiritually, I don't know. I in one respect, I get faintly irritated by people that are kind of consumed by a certain spirituality and take themselves so seriously and let it define their lives. I mean, I guess I let my work define my life, which is probably just as bad. But I, you know, I wouldn't sort of get into something that was just that's all, you know, and all I think about, and I don't do anything unless that is sort of, you know, aligned with that. Having said that, we went to, you know, church when I was young because I was brought up in a sort of a Christian family in the West Country. So I even taught in Sunday school, funnily enough, but been quite useful for interpreting art objects later in life, art iconography. You know, I say I'm not spiritual, but yesterday I was launching yet another project, perfumes and art pairings. So there's a woman I know that creates scents for super yachts and scents for private houses and for high net worth individuals. And we're looking at putting on another event. I've always got endless events in my head. I just need the sponsorship to do them. But this is another one where we're going to pair this whole concept of synesthesia, where you look at a painting and you can smell an aroma or an essence, or you can smell the essence and you can see a color or a painting. So that's very spiritual, and she works with tarot, and we were talking about our star signs, and she was saying this is a scent for manifesting what you want in your life, and this is a scent for bringing, you know, love. And of course I'd wear it if it was something I wanted, because why wouldn't you just, you know, even if you don't sort of think, you might not want to do it. But actually, you know, so in a way I was very interested in the spirituality of that. But I don't think that I would let it, you know, dominate me. I think, you know, the focus and the goal and the vision of what you're trying to do should be the guiding factor.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I have one or two final questions, but before I get on to the final questions of our chat today, I wanted to take us into a quick fire question round.
Oh,
So you didn't know this was coming, so you couldn't prepare for it.
no.
So I'm going to say two words, and I would just like your immediate reaction and say the word back to me that you feel most drawn to. You don't
Okay.
need to give me an explanation. You don't need to think about it for too long, and you can only pick one. I will say two words, and then you will pick the one that you feel most drawn to. Okay?
Out of those two words.
Out of those two words. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Morning or night?
Night.
Vacation or staycation?
Vacation.
Netflix or party?
Party.
Pizza or burger?
Burger.
Rain or sun?
Sun.
Fast or slow?
Fast.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Eggs or bacon?
Eggs.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Texting or calling?
Calling.
Today or
Even though I
tomorrow?
don't do it. Sorry?
Today or tomorrow?
Today.
Thank you. So
Are you going to give me a free psychological analysis now?
I'll let the listeners do that. They can they can Instagram you and give you their feedback. So before we wrap this up, and I really enjoyed speaking to you today, Pandora, but if there was one or two things, and I see what you have created with your life, your path, your goals as you've spoken about, and your journey ahead as successful. You have embraced something that you have passion for, and you continue to share that with others, and I think that there is great joy and reflection in that success. So if there was one thing that you could say to appoint that success, what do you believe it takes to succeed in life?
I think you need a vision. You need a vision of what you want to achieve. I think you need focus, as I've sort of been saying. You need to really love what you're going to do, because obviously you're going to be doing it quite a lot, and you don't want to sort of, fall off the wagon with your projects. I think you need to be able to engage people and like working with people. I think people is one of the biggest problems in business. A lot of people give up their jobs and retire because they can't handle the people, not because they can't handle the job. So managing people is probably something that you're very good at, especially in polo and tweed. So I think that's really important. And I suppose, trying to sort of manage your energy and your time. We never have enough energy, we never have enough time, we never have enough resources. And just to be aware of that and try and, not waste your time. And I'm not practicing what I preach all the time, but I'm very conscious of it. So, and trying to stay fit and healthy, I think is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, it has been such a delight to speak with you today. It has been fascinating. I'm particularly fascinated about the underwater, but that's obviously my link with my scuba diving passion. I used to teach it. But all of this art is so unique and beautiful, and the appreciation that one can have for it and learn about the appreciation. The years I've spent walking around museums, and then to have someone stood next to me telling me about the art, everything comes alive. I love the stuff you talked about with the scent, and to look at a painting of the sea and then smell the sea and the ocean and the breeze. I mean, this is just this visceral and amazing 360 degrees creation that you are working in all your different projects and events, which I would like to come to all of them, please. So thank you for speaking with us today. For everyone who's been listening, you can find Pandora on LinkedIn. Pandora Mather-Lees. We'll be linking her on obviously this podcast text and on our socials. You can also find her on Instagram. She's got two accounts. One handle is Pandora Art Services, and and the second one is Art on Super Yachts. So please do go over, follow her Instagrams, DM her if you need her help, and please look at her training as well, because, you know, even if you're just not in the art world at all, but you just want to learn a little bit about art, you know, it can totally shift and enhance your own experience when you're out in the world, and you'll look at the world just a little bit differently. Well, thank you, Pandora. It was a pleasure to meet you and speak with you today, and I wish you all the success and adventures ahead in the art world.
Thank you, Lucy. It's been wonderful to speak to you too, and I hope we can perhaps do something together in the future.